How's it going, everyone? Scott McKay is here, getting set up and ready to go. I'm going to take the graphics off the screen. How we doing, everyone? Scott McKay here for Thin Air Graphics. Airbrush Down and Dirty Tricks, getting ready for another live feed on Thursday night. We have things just starting out. Wait for some people to get in the rooms. We got people over on Facebook, people over on YouTube starting to settle in. We'll let this kind of go for a little sec. And everyone on the Facebook side, there's a link in the description that gets you over to the YouTube channel. And Kaylee will copy and post that link and pin it so it's always there in the comment section. And we will get things rolling in just a minute or two. There we go. Should have had my face on there first, but I had the wrong camera going on. But it's only 4 people in here. I'll say, who do we got here? Pickles the Carney. How's it going, man? People starting out. And we'll just give it a few seconds here. Get things going. Awesome, man. I appreciate that. That's really cool. That's really, really cool. All right. So we're going to get this thing started back off just because I didn't have my camera on my face, and this is going to be used for a how-to. So I want to give people a chance to get in because we have people that pre-purchased the vector file for this project, and they can follow along. I want to give you guys a few seconds just to get in. So let's show you what I'm doing here. Today we are doing this project here. So once again, welcome to Airbrush Down Dirty Tricks. Tonight is going to be this hooked tribal skull design that I did years back for an article, a how-to article actually, in Airbrush Action magazine. And this was the piece right here. Let me switch into just a close-up of it so you can see the one. This was the piece that was featured in the article. And I did it in a few classes, and I taught it quite a few times, and I did different variations each time. And what I did with this one, I actually started on a tan panel. And then I did this same process, and I did the background first, like we're going to do, and then I worked my way out of it using sequential masking techniques, which is the process I do a lot of when I'm using vector and plotted masks. So what I'm doing this time is this is on a granite texture pattern, background. And in the video following this, I did a quick step-by-step on a couple techniques on how to do the granite texture for this. And I use the spray gun technique to do this, and you can do it with an airbrush by simply taking your airbrush, taking a popsicle stick or an edge, and here, we'll just go off a little piece of paper here and show you just really quick. So this is the black that I'm going to be using. So basically, just to give you a quick example on screen, to get this stone stippling effect, and I use a spray gun reduced down to like 2-3 psi and just let the paint spit out and you'll get this effect. Or you can do it with an airbrush by skipping paint right off the edge of a hard surface, in this case a popsicle stick. And if you see, you get speckles. Let me see if we can zoom in a little more and maybe we can get a better look. So what you do is you skip it, and then you mix a gray, and then you mix a white, and you go back and forth until you get what you're happy with. But there's a quick video on how to do it, so I'm not really going to cover it too big here. There is also a quick video on how I did the applying the mask and everything like that. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that and transferring it. There is videos on that, but for the pacing of the live stream, I wanted to get this on ahead of time. And anyone who bought the files, you have some extra how-to videos in there on the paint selection and how I did everything. So if you go over to McKayFineArt.com, there's a link in the description on the YouTube channel that has all the information there for the project, including the vector files of this design and the image separated so you don't have the tribal separated from the skull itself. So let's see, what we got in the house? We got a few people logging in. We got Blue. who had to change your name. Sorry about that over on the Facebook side. That's crazy. Looking for the negation, you were live, obsessed with skulls right now for some reason. Hey, being obsessed with skulls, Dennis, is kind of par for the course when you get into airbrushing. It really is. Especially like if you do what I do, and I do a lot of motorcycle custom paint. Doing a lot of motorcycle custom paint, you basically do a real lot of it. A lot of skulls, a lot of things like that will always come across that. So let's see here. Let's go back to the double angle. So I got two cameras going. I got a kind of a 3/4 so you can see the side. And I got a top down
How do you
right
mix
here.
your paint to get the tarnish brown?
The tarnish brown. Oh, if I was gonna do this one, basically it's just a little brown and white. Maybe a couple drops of black if I need it. Maybe a drop of like a chrome yellow. You can get any type of color like that, but it starts with a base white. So unfortunately, my iPad that I see the Facebook feed is gonna have a problem because my old iPad's being messed up. So, Kayla, you may have to keep an eye on any major questions on the Facebook side. But remember, everyone on Facebook, try to get over the YouTube side. I can see your comments easier. Exactly. Skulls, fiery demons, angels. Yeah, you're gonna do a lot of them. You know, you're gonna do a lot of roses. You're gonna do a lot of military theme. You're gonna do a lot of American flag. There's a lot of things that in the airbrush and custom culture, especially custom motorcycle culture and automotive. There's going to be repetitive themes that come throughout. So you always see the question like, oh, why do I see so many skulls? Well, a lot of people want skulls. A lot of people want fire. A lot of people want flame. So they're items you want to definitely get into understanding and learning and how they work. So, skulls, roses, gambling themes, American flags. There's so much stuff that you can do. So much of my audio is low. I'm going to beef that up a little bit. That should get a little better. That might be too loud. Let me know if that comes in too loud. So there's stuff you're always going to go in, but skulls are definitely one of the big things you're always going to have to do. So let's get to it. So I talked about the colors I mixed, and the colors I mixed up before this. I just basically did illustration black, and I mixed about 5 or 10% red violet in it, just so it warmed up the black a little bit, so it wasn't so flat. And then I mixed up a white with a drop or two of black, just so it wasn't pure. And what an optional mix, and you don't need to use it, I may not use it, is excuse me, is I mixed Candy 2O black. It's not needed in the project. I didn't mention it ahead of time, but I decided to mix them up just in case I wanted to use it. But it's not needed for the project. You could use a weakened reduced black, and you'll be all set with that. So, So let's see what we can do here. Okay, so like I said, we have this graphic is already on there, and the sample sheet shows you what I picked out ahead of time. I weeded this stuff out that's in the gray. Weeding is a term for just like picking weeds in a garden. I picked out what you don't want, and then I put transfer tape on it, and then I applied this to the surface, okay? Because when you do work sequentially, you work from the background forward. So you paint in sequential layers, basically. So I work from the background, furthest back elements, and I move that forward and forward throughout the piece. Sorry about that. Had a little technical difficulty for a sec. Okie doke. So first color I'm going to work with is basically just black. But this black has a hint of purple in it. It doesn't really show up on screen. But basically, the reason why you do it is, when you go solid, it looks black. But it's the blend, it's the fade, it's the transition gradient. The gradient won't be as black or, as kind of dirty looking as some blacks are. Some blacks go to a bluish tone, some blacks go to a brownish tone, depending on the manufacturer. Neither one of them I ever found desirable for most black and gray work, so I've always tinted mine with either a little bit of red, or I tinted it with a little blue, or I tint it with a little purple, depending where I want to go. So, let's look at the actual finished skull. So you look at this and you see everything's dark in the background. So basically we're doing a top forward, top down light source. So meaning light source is coming down like this, it's in the skull and casting shadows down on everything. And because of the skull's floating, it's creating a shadow in the background and things like that. So we're going to work on all this and we're going to work through the layers and go up and you'll see it all come together. Now this project, if you don't have a plotter, and I want to stress this a lot, if you don't have a plotter, the download file comes with the nice high-res image of, you know, of this and that. So you could simply, you know, take this image, blow it up on a, you know, photocopier, and then you could do a transfer onto the surface, or you could just simply paper cut as you go in some of this and do a traditional paper cut technique if you don't have a plotter. Or, like I said, you could sheet mask it with transfer tape or masking material, draw this on there or transfer it on there your way, and then hand cut everything. I prefer not to hand cut directly on metal panels because I treat it like custom cars, which we used to cut on, you know, we used to cut directly on, and now we try to avoid it as much as we can. You can't always, but integrating a plotter, you'll always be able to, if you don't like something, you can actually sand it and remove it, and you don't have any razor cut lines on your substrate. That's really the reason I use it. What's up, Gary? I want to thank everyone for popping in. It's really cool. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to get this thing going. Let's try to. Nope, I was going to try to get my other feed up. So again, anyone who's watching over on the Facebook side, please click the link. Come over to the YouTube side and see it. You don't need to have a subscription to view the video. It'll just pop up. You will to comment or do super chats or anything like that. Just like Facebook, you need to have a registration to do anything on it. But the analytics are better over here. The video quality is better over here. And if you want to come back to this video later time, you can come back at a later time and watch it wherever you want. So, top-down light source. So the shadow's going to be underneath. I'm going to make sure we go over everything. And I'm going to do some granite cracks out here as well. Actually, let's do that first. Let's place a few granite cracks. This little guy here, the skull, I made this a long time ago. There's a lot of different people who make different things in the market. Trigger Happy, he makes some really cool ones. They just like stick on. This was one I cast out of resin years ago. And just kind of bonded it to my airbrush. All right, so let's do a few cracks first. I'm going to lay them in just as a quick example. You know, the cool thing about cracks are almost like lightning bolts. You just want to come down and like be a little shaky, but have some actual like movement to it. What I'll do is I'll continue these into the skull later. And just kind of like how tree branches, you don't do a ton of them. Keep them moving. You can let the paint blow out a little bit. Double up on stuff. There's so many old techniques in this. Between magazines and YouTube videos. I'm not gonna like go nuts on it because there's so much info out there. And just remember your light source, and I'll cast a little shadow on it now. So it looks like the layers are kind of up and down. And don't do them all over. You don't need a million of them. I think that's about it. That's all I'm going to put in. For the main ones, maybe I'll go back. And we can add some pocket graphics effects to it and things like that. With it, we can add some edges. And, you know, if I want to add some, like, heavy broken edges, we could use my pocket graphics shatter and, like, do a broken edge. Yeah, like, on, like, the edge of this. Let's break this one up. Just have it on the edge. And I'm going to move it a little bit, just give it a little shadow. And then I'm going to pop off those. Small, just something small. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Alright, that's all I'm going to do there. Let's see, LG. Sorry I couldn't watch this live. He just woke up and it's 1. I'll watch later today. Cool, man. Definitely check it out. It's going to be a good one. If you're interested, go on my McKay Fine Art and definitely check out the download if you're interested in doing this project. Let's talk really quick about the material I use. The material I'm using on this is the FBS Blue Mask. That's what I've cut everything out of. This is a product that came out a few years ago. It's super thin. I'm pretty sure I can say this, but it's pretty much the thinnest vinyl mask, paint mask on the market that is plottable, that you can work on solvent, water-based, everything like that. It stretches around a ball beautifully. This is my go-to mask for all my detail work and stuff like that. There are the masked brands out there. FBS also has the gold mask, which I've used in prior videos. There's a couple out there. And that's what I used for this one, was the FBS Blue Mask. And like I said, there's other brands out there. You can go with Avery. You can go with... I don't recommend Oracal much. Oracal tends to have issues with solvent, in my experience, so I tend to stay away from it. Their 810 gray has worked fine. And it's semi-transparent, but for transparency, I prefer the FBS blue. I mean, not blue, the green that's out, which is transparent. You can see through it. So, just hit that. Alright, so let's get started on the actual piece. I hope some of you guys are following along on this, and if you are, thank you for the download and the purchase of this product. Things like that keep these videos coming. It allows me to be able to spend the time to prepare the video segments, prepare the how-tos, prepare the files, get everything up, and then watching this. And you guys sharing it is definitely going to help me get more exposure and let people see this stuff. Again, it's going to help me do more and more of these videos. These do take a lot to set up, so all your support is much appreciated. So simple. I'm going to go around and simply just perimeter ring this whole guy. I'm going to not put a ton up here because this is the top of the skull. The light's here, so it's only going to have a slight casting in the background. What's up, Gary? Both Garys. So I'm going to go around here light. And what I'm going to do when I get down here, this is the top of the skull is further forward. So I'm going to make sure we hit really far back. And it's casting a much heavier shadow. Around everything. This is the back jaw. So basically what I'm painting now is I'm painting all around here. So that's creating a shadow. This is creating a shadow. And that. Let's get you both angles here, maybe, so you can see that. You know what, I think the top down. What you guys like better? Just the front, or do you like seeing the side by side? With the reference. Let's do that. You can see the reference. So you have 3 images going across. Boom, boom, and this one here. There. Everyone on Facebook, you won't see that. You just get this one camera. So click that link and pop over. So I'm going to make sure that there's like a fang off the edge here. I'm going to make sure that's really kind of casting outwards. Most of the mask. I mean, not spraying most of the mask. So everybody's spraying most of the paint. So Pickles the Carney, you can go, if you want this file in this project, McKay Fine Art, it's in the link. There's a description to it in the description of this live feed, but it's McKayFineArt.com. It's MACKAY fineart.com. And this whole project is there. So I know this looks really strong right now. It looks like super just saturated. It's really not. There's very little paint, and there's even less paint on the surface itself. I'm spraying it on the actual mask. Going around here, letting that jaw cast. We're gonna let that cast way down. And then we're gonna follow that shape. And I'm not doing these blades just yet. There's a reason for that. I'm just following along where the skull would be. Just, if you look right here, this little line to these three here, that's the back of the skull coming back like that. Okay. So I'm not doing these, and there's a reason I'm not doing these tribals yet. These hooked graphics or hooked blades. They're called tribal designs when we started doing motorcycle work back in the day. It's not really a term that's used as much anymore. It's just it's a graphic blade design. But just like tribal tattoos, it's recognizable. Okay, so this is where we kind of get, the thing about doing this, and it's a term I hate using because it sounds like cheap, but it's kind of a paint by numbers. If you look at this, we're going to pull section by section and work our way out of it. So you can look around and see, okay, so this is the background. So what's the next layer up? Okay, what's the next layer, up from that? So if you're looking from the front back, what's the furthest back? So for me, the furthest back that's in this piece is this guy right here. That's the back of the jawbone coming up. That's the back side of the jawbone coming up there, like that. And what you want to do is you can take an X-Acto knife, a pick tool, whatever you have handy. I usually have a little pick tool, but I don't know where I put it, so I'm going to use an X-Acto knife, or you can use one of the slice blades, or there's a million ways to do it. Plastic razor blades work too. So let's go into here. I'm going to take this up. I'm going to pull that away. See that? So now, see how much brighter that is? And I barely put most of the paints on the stencil. Okay, if you see that, most of it's on the stencil itself, or the masking material. Now I start shadowing and determining the actual look of the skull. Okay, so back here it's pretty easy. The jaw, the upper jaw, the palate, the tooth palate is casting a shadow down there. These teeth are casting shadows behind because it's further in the background. You're working your way out like that. So I'm going to create that shadow like this. Under there, I'm just going to follow that around. And now I'm going to give this a little delineation. You can look at, cool skull reference like this. This is a skull by Tim Lowry. It's a really cool little skull you can reference and look. And you could actually, this one's cool because you could pull the jawbone off and actually go, okay, so what does that actually look like here? Like, okay, that kind of comes down. And like in here, the radius is back. There's a little bit of crack and stuff in there. And I'm not going to do too much detail at this point. I'm going to save a lot of the detail for the end. But I'm just going to work in some shadow casting and shaping of the bone. There's a little hook here I kind of want to do. So I'm going to grab just a loose shield, and actually you could probably do it. The pocket graphics will probably work good. And we're going to find this little hole like that. We just have an edge. Actually, no, that's not going to work as well as I want. I'm going to use this guy here. I'm going to use it just to define like kind of the inner part of the jaw. This is going to be pretty dark in the background, so you're not going to see it too much. I'm just going to let that fade out. That whole thing can get pretty dark. And now, like, I'm going to decide at the end, we can make this crack, looks like it cracks all the way through the skull. Maybe we'll do that. But because it's in a different position, I'm going to put it down here and radius it around. And then it like pops off the skull and goes to there. It's a really cool, simple effect. All right, now we're going to keep working our way out. We're going to look around some more. What's the deepest? So I look back in here. This is deep. That's deep. That's deep. Yeah, I'm going to pull up here. I'll go too far. What I'm probably going to do now is I'm going to pull the eyes and the nose first and just get that kind of laid out. I'm going to pull the eyes and the nose. I'm going to pull this guy. And I'm going to pull all this stuff. I'm going to like fold this back a little bit. You'll see how that works out. Everyone say hi to Kaylee. She is manning the computer in the background, taking care of all the graphics and all that fun stuff. She's the one who puts up the little sponsors and, you know, all that. So I'm going to do the nose. Oh, so I got to do the nose first. You got to work your way in. If I pulled the nose and the side at the same time, actually, I'm going to put this back because I should have pulled this eye first and not that. Okay? That's why vinyl's nice. Try and go back in. And I can just stick it back on to where I need it. And for the most part, it goes back right where I need it for this position. I'll pull that eye. I'm gonna pull this. So I know this. I might have to turn my AC unit on in here because it is climbing rapidly because it's been so hot and humid today. Right before the show, I had it down to 70 with like 50% humidity. Now I'm already at 62% humidity and 80 degrees in here. So I might have to deal with a little bit of noise for the air conditioner. I don't think it's going to be too interruptive. Hopefully that's not too bad in the background. Let me know if that sound is coming through bad. Here's the key on the eyes, and there's a reason I want to get to this early. The key to this is not overdoing it. Please, just like when using stencils, you don't want to be like, I know it might look like that in videos putting a lot, but remember, probably 90% of it's going on the background material. Okay? So when you do the eyes especially, don't flood it. We're going to freehand a lot of that afterwards. So and eye sockets are not holes. They're sockets, meaning, so look at your skull reference, you know, if you tilt it, it's like, oh, it's really, so you look at this camera, it looks like solid black. You know, if you look at this camera, the angle one. Now, if you go to the straight shot camera, the one that's pointing up here, see how it looks, it's very light. So it depends on the angle, okay? You know, light has a lot to do with it. So there's stuff going on back there, so it's not a big black hole. See all the little detail in the back? You want to get all that in there. So don't flood this area. I'm putting a little bit, I'm going to go stronger at the top and coming down. I'm going to put a little at the bottom just for registration, but not much. And notice if you look at my side shot camera, you know, you'll notice I'm you know, a good distance away. The top down looks like I'm really close, but I'm quite a few inches away. Greetings! We got some people here, and I'm not sure on Facebook. We got people bouncing on the Facebook side, Kaylee?
Not really. We have like 6 people on there.
This flag can afford to be a little darker because it's pretty pushed into the background. If you want to work that now, I can work this. See that? Because if I took them both off, at the same time, this would just be a big black void. So the key is you put the main dark in here like this, and the light's going to be catching on that side of it, so it's not too dark there. And remember, skulls have, you know, it's not a hole in the nose either. You got a middle bone, you know, your septum that goes in. And I'm going to see if I have a stencil with a reverse curve. let's take something like this and just kind of get in here. And from here, the center bone, it just kind of radiuses back. I'm just going to find a little curve there I like. Just hit it. See what I did there? It just goes in. And we're going to define that more later, but I'm just registering everything in. If you go too dark too fast now, what's going to happen is it's gonna really beat up. No, this is not a Talon. Everything I use is Iwata. So this is Iwata HPC Plus. This is an older one where I machined out the handle down to its brass. Just I thought it would look cool. So this is the HPC Plus I'm using. I have my regular Iwata Eclipse CS. These are my two go-tos. I use these pretty much all the time. I'll use microns when I need to. Is Mr. Leahy in the house? Did I see Mr. Leahy pop in? Yes, he is. Mr. Leahy, how we doing? So yes, so get back to the airbrushes. The regular Eclipse HPCS is my go-to all the time. My next one up for my little bit more detail, I go with the HPC Plus, and then I do use a micron from time to time. But most of my projects are never really, it's not required. I can do just as much detail on everything with an Eclipse. I mean, honestly, if you can't get detail out of the Eclipse right, you got to practice more and work it more, because the Eclipse is capable of micro detail, and basically the micron can do a little smaller more consistently, but the paint requirements are much thinner, so it's not really needed, but it's like driving a supercar. If you're gonna be a race car driver, you don't start by going out and getting a GT formula car. You start with more reasonable cars, you learn to control those, and before you start moving up. Alright, let's get into here. I'm just going to set this up. And what's going to be cool is I'm going to have to definitely put this on a high-speed playback, because you'll see just how fast this comes together as I work through it. And if anyone who's followed my feeds, you'll notice, you probably noticed by now that the projects take a little time to start to come together at the beginning, but once they do, it's a really progressive, it progresses fast, where everything just keeps happening quick, and before you know it, you got a big, done rendering. So thank you, Mr. Leahy, for popping into the feed. Are you back in Ohio, or are you still out in Wisconsin? I think you're still out there, right? Because you were at Revo? You were at Revo today? Sorry for the confusion, Dennis. Okay, so what you got to be careful here is this cut doesn't go all the way through, because the cheekbone that goes around to the temple and comes down to where your ear canal is, it's not connected. So you just really you can just pop it, and you'll see why at the end. You just pop that off like that. You can leave this little tail, because we're not painting that far out yet. We're just painting the back side of the skull. This part of the skull here really is underneath. It's all this stuff here, which is a lot going on, and I don't really get into a ton of realism on this stage. I just kind of darken it out and texture it, make it a little fun and cool. If you get too literal for too much realism here, especially if you're doing this for a custom motorcycle client, the budgets usually aren't that crazy, and usually doing a few skulls, 3 or 4, 6, 20, whatever. If you over detail them, make them so realistic, the chance of getting paid enough for the time it's going to take to do it is very slim. You may have clients that are willing to, and those ones you absolutely do, but just keep that in mind, that this is a stylized skull. It's kind of like a tattoo style skull, and we're not going for realism of any kind. We're going for more cool than anything else. Now, what this line is here, I'm setting this up now. With this line, this shadow I'm putting up has nothing to do with the skull. There's the tribal blade. This hook is coming up, so light's coming down, it's casting a shadow. So I'm using a soft dagger stroke and going up and just following through and keeping it soft and away. So if you look at shadows, if you even look here, see See how the shadow's casting, my airbrush is casting? It's further away, and the closer I get, the closer the shadow gets. And watch right here. My airbrush is close, so the shadow is almost touching the airbrush. Move it away, it gets a little bigger. And see how the shadow gets further and further, and it gets softer and softer. That's the key to doing drop shadow. See that? It's close, crisp and tight. The more I move away, the softer that shadow gets. That's the effect you're trying to do. You can really see it here in the blue. See that? And if this was on a curve, that shadow would actually burn. It would actually kind of warp and bend. Okay? So like on a skull, watch. See how it's crisp and straight there? If I do it on this, see right here? It bends away because it radiuses around the skull. This is stuff that I go into my classes, my Down and Dirty Tricks classes, which is coming up at the Airbrush Art Circus in October. Me and Rhino go over, but the Airbrush Rendezvous as well. This is stuff I go over a lot, from plotting to application to mixing and light sourcing, and really get in and really dial into everything in these classes. So the Airbrush Art Circus is going to be in Anaheim, California, October 1st through the 5th. It's the first time we're doing it at Coast. We usually do the Rendezvous there, but we're going to do a little something different. We're going to bring the circus to California for the first time. And so hope to see some of you guys there, and yeah, check it out. AirBrushArtCircus.com has all the information on that, and go check it out. Hello, Mr. Voss. I think I saw Mr. Voss. You're going to be attempting this project. I can't wait to see how you do with it. It's a great one. It's fun to do. And if anyone is following along right now, if you've got a question, please answer it now, because it's something I might not think of or cover. So that would help some people who might do it at a later time. I'm going to use one of Gerald Mendez's texture effects back here. I'm just going to put a little bit of texture back here just to simulate a little something going on. And that's kind of it right there. Again, I'm not going super black here either. I'm not like pushing it. I just need enough registration so when I pull the next layer, I can see everything. So we've done that, we've done that, we've done that. Where else can we go? Where else can we go? You know, we're going to do the whole bottom jaw. I'm going to pull this whole bottom jaw section here. I'm going to leave the teeth. Pull that. This is part of it right here, this next piece. And then up in here. This is all part of the jaw. Okay? See that? If you look at it through as a whole, that's all the jaw right here. So I pulled this section, this little guy in here, and this little one here. Okay? All right. Again, you know, now you can go on here and you can look at a skull. You look at the jaw. I wish I had one of my big skulls. Let me see. Hey, Kayla, you do me a favor. Grab me that big, goofy skull. Actually, yeah. Thank you. Okay. So here's a bigger skull with a crazy eye. This is a cool keychain I got. Alright, so you look at the skull. You see the bone kind of radiuses, comes down, and it's not like a sharp line. It kind of rolls and fades into where the teeth are here, and this rolls and fades in here. It's a little bit bigger, a little easier to see that. Okay? I just threw the eyeball at Kaylee. So I'm just going to come down freehand like this, or you can use a shield, or you can use a template. Here we go. If you want, if you're not comfortable going freehand, you can do something like this. And just kind of separate that out. I don't want to get too crazy with that, so I'm going to soften it. Just bring that down. I'm going to make sure I cast these shadows. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to notch this here, because this kind of rolls and fades over. because it's like a tuck. A little over exaggerated when you do these, but okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast where the blade hooks are, and it's going to go away. See what I did there? I didn't connect this one to that one because this jawbone is more forward than that. So that shadow is further back and it's softer. The back side of the skull underneath here is further away than this. This is closer. So it'll be tighter and more towards it. And you'll really notice that lift as we start unmasking it. Thank you for coming from Brazil. Much appreciated. I'm not going to try to say it in Brazilian because I'll probably just offend you. Same thing here. This drop shadow is going to come across here like that. And then one further back is going to go further back. Okay? And like I said, we don't have to get into all the detail here. I can start doing some of it, like just some core shadows, and let the bone radius down. You know, looking at, let's put this guy back together here. You know, looking at it like this and figuring out how things look and how the bones kind of come. You know, it sweeps in and back out. Jawbones are not smooth out here. They actually go in from the teeth. We kind of go from the side. It goes in from the teeth and back out towards the chin. There's always a little, I don't know what it's called, some of the bone, I don't know if Rob Churchill's on here. He knows a lot of the names. There's a little, like, pucker mark here. I always put that little kind of detail in my skull, just registered ahead of time. And now the key is where the teeth are. So for the teeth, I'm gonna hit them all with a little bit of shadow. I'm gonna paint right on the tooth itself, okay? Not painting off. I'm going to switch cameras. I'm going to zoom in on these guys here. Perfect question. How do I know what to pick next? Super easy, okay? So this is sequential masking, so we're going in a sequence. So because we're working on a light surface, we're painting background shadows. So we're painting the shadows first. So whatever's casting the shadow, you work up the ladder, basically up the steps. So you do the background first, that's the first in the background. So you shadow all that, and then we did this bone because it's the next up in the line. You work on that. I pulled the eyes because they're next. I pulled these, they're next. Everything casts a shadow and everything else. So I'm working my way from back to front. Okay? That's the key of sequential masking. And that'll come into play when we do the teeth a lot. So I'm doing the teeth like that. Okay, teeth in general, they're a socket. It goes in further. So I come down and from between the teeth, I just come down and do light strokes of paint. Okay, they just come down light. See that? I'm not doing it heavy right now because I'm going to go with highlights and freehanding later. But if you're not comfortable, you can do them heavier, and they kind of bend around. And you can, like, a lot of times you can see, like, the shape of the teeth kind of going further into the socket. Remember, it's a socket. You know, a lot of this comes from just years of messing with this stuff and doing it. You're probably not going to do this overnight. This one comes in. I'm going to loosen this edge. I'm going to freehand right around and kind of pucker that in like that. See how it's already starting to look like little sockets in there? Cool. Did that make sense? Pickles? That's still funny to say. You know, so you're working from back to front. When I work on a black canvas, I paint the highlights first and we go from front to back. So if I was doing this on a black metal, I'd be working exactly opposite. I would invert this whole project. Actually, I'll show you a really good example of that. It's another project that I have. So my dragon step-by-step. The dragon step-by-step. This is also a YouTube video. That's fully watchable. It's free, about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. This project is also downloadable. It's called the Dragon Paint by Number. Might change the name of that, because I did this, the same process as this. I worked sequentially from the background forward, and that was the numbering sequence. So light surface, I paint from the background up to the foreground. And then with that same image, that same file, on a dark surface, I reverse it, and I start from the foreground to the background. And you get that. So it's really just working front to back, back to front, front to back. Okay, so and you get two totally different approaches. This is the same process. So this technique that I did here is really the same technique as that. And for those who remember, I don't know if anyone, come on, some people are here who can do it. Oh, let me go look to see what Demetrius said. Sorry about that, I missed that. Can I use a rather scan and cut instead of a plotter to cut a vinyl mask? A scan and cut. So I'm not sure what you mean by a scan and cut, unless you're gonna like take a picture, you know, scan it, vector it, and then cut it, you know, out of another machine. Sure, you can. You know, this is already set up, so if you go to MckayFineArt.com, you can download this file and just cut it on any machine, or you can print this out on paper and hand cut it yourself. Super easy to do. Okay, so we're just getting this set up. We got those registered in. There's not much happening there. That looks cool. We're gonna get to all this detail at the end. I don't need to go nuts on this right now, because I can do all the little goodies once I get all the mask off. My goal is to work with this plotted mask as least as possible, is just to get it off the surface, but have all my registration there and everything where I want it. It's not to overwork everything with this on here, okay? Let's talk sequential really quick, and this will make more sense. So we're gonna go back to front. So if we're gonna do the teeth, which teeth am I gonna pull? Remember, teeth are stacked. They're not like side by side when they go from a radius. They are side by side, but when things converge away from you, they start ending up behind each other, okay? So you're gonna work from the background teeth to the foreground teeth, which in skulls is pretty easy. Background teeth here are the outermost teeth. So I'm gonna work from out to in. I'm gonna make sure that's set up enough. I'm gonna pull, and I can do both these at once, so this happens fast. I can go that tooth and this tooth. Okay, just like that. I paint on the next tooth. I put the paint right there. And that's creating a shadow onto that one. I'm going to use this time, because just I know that you're seeing the top of the tooth. So I'm just going to hit that now. But this one here, I'm just painting on the tooth next to it. So you pick a tooth and you paint on the tooth next to it. Okay? Easiest way to remember it. Now look, now I'm going to repeat. Rinse and repeat, folks. And it's really for registration. Again, I'm going to keep saying it, because I think the biggest mistake most people make is they overpaint everything at the start and they saturate it too much. And then they're either fighting the way it looks in the end, because they're trying to lighten things up, and because they got too dark too fast. So the key is not to do too much. That's why you paint a little bit on the stencil. And you know, we've been talking about this stuff for a long time, and Mr. Leahy can attest to that. I first started teaching, my first classes were actually, you know, with Steve. So I think Steve was probably in my first class, not in it as a student, but he worked for a company called Bear Air, and I taught my first class at Bear Air, my first kind of how-tos, and that's how me and Steve met, was through some of the stuff they did. And you know, these techniques have been being taught really very similarly all the time. But see how those teeth are coming together by just painting on that, the tooth adjacent. Now I know this tooth kind of comes down. That's what I'm going to do. So that's the kind of inside Okay, just little bits, and I keep working. Whatever, the one next to each other. Oh, actually, I gotta skip because that's kind of the center tooth. This one overlaps that one the way it's shaped. So I'm gonna skip. I'm gonna go back here with that guy. You know, you don't have to put all these teeth like that. You can pull them off at once and just freehand them. This is really just an aid, just like using a stencil. So you're not, you know, if you don't have, you want to keep them crisp and clean, you want to do it multiple times over and over again. You know, this is a technique of why I do it this way. It's really just set up for freehand, because I'm going to go back into all these teeth freehand and start, like this one here. Actually, I'm gonna move this over just a hair so you can look. So what I do after this later, I'm only going to do this one. I'm going to go back in like this, and I'm going to start adding little details to the teeth, carving that out, shadowing it, shadowing the socket some more so it looks like it actually comes out of like a hole, and just start working it more and more. And then I'm going to put some highlighting, and it's really going to pop. Okay, so we're going to do most of that at the end. So again, I started saying it before and I went off track. Sorry, that's my ADD mind. This article, I actually did this in an article in Airbrush Action magazine. I gotta think it's close to a decade or more ago, or yeah, probably around then. Maybe more. And I tried to find the issue today and I couldn't find it. So if anyone has the issue handy, knows where it comes out, please put it up there. I originally did this as a step-by-step in Airbrush Action, which taught you how to go through it and how to vector it all yourself. How I vectored this in Adobe Illustrator. I'm gonna do another video on how I do this just using Adobe Illustrator and the techniques I did based on that same article. So I'm gonna do that, how I get them to weave in. And I got some ideas for some Celtic knot work and some other knots, and we'll do some other stone examples. All right, enough talk, enough chit chat. All right, so now I'm looking. Okay. So I'm going here. Okay, I'm going to do inside the mouth, and I'm actually going to pull this little guy next to, I'm going to pull this one here. I'm going to pull the palette inside here. I'm going to pull this one next, and I can actually pull out here and out here, because they're also the furthest back. Okay, that's all this stuff here, here, pull all this stuff. Make sense? So I said it a few times, make sure, I'm sure most of you are here, already subscribed, you get the notifications, but make sure you do sign up for notifications, especially because, you know, I do the live feed every Thursday night, but sometimes I put videos up ahead of time, what I'm going to be doing, how I prep the panels, or just little tips and tricks. So you want to, you know, get notified for that stuff. Make sure you sign up for the notifications. That's a little, you know, next to subscribe is a little bell. The bell will give you notifications when I do stuff. Oh, here's a little tricky one. There's a little triangle right there. See this little guy? That little guy is right there. It's hard to see in the photo. That's really small. Yeah, because you don't even really see it. There's a little triangle right there. Make sure you get that guy. And then come around, come around. They're coming in here. You know, the other nice thing about using a plotter is the example of exactly what I'm doing today. I designed and drew this well over a decade ago, and I vectored this well over a decade ago. And now, using it again, it's a decade later, breathing new life, teaching more people with it, and I can flip it, mirror it, reverse it, change the size, do it with or without the hooks, and this is why I use a plotter. Not because I don't know how to cut it by hand, not because I don't know how to freehand it. I'm going to stress this for some, I'll use the word trolls out there, there's enough of them. just because people use stencils or plotters or doesn't mean they can't do it freehand. They can't do it photorealistically. They can't. No, there's a reason why we do things, and it's an aid to make things better, faster, more efficient, especially when you're doing it for money, you're doing it for clients. You know, if someone wants to pay for photorealism on the side of a motorcycle, and I'll spend 12, 14 hours painting each skull or that skull, happy to do it, can do it all day long. But the fact is, most guys want really cool, gnarly skulls. They kind of want that aggressive tattoo style look. They're not going for photorealism. So we do more stylized. We give it some more anger, give it some different looks and tweaks and bold lines. You don't want, if you got a motorcycle or a custom car, especially, which is what I work on, or some fine art that you want bold and striking, you know, most of the consumer and the people are looking at these things from 15, 20 feet away. All that little nuance detail is lost. They want bold and cool, so that's why we paint like this. And if you got to paint 20, 30, or I've done as much as 200 skulls on a motorcycle, you're not going to do them all photorealism, or you're not going to do hyper detailed. And a lot of those I won't use. Sometimes I use stencils just to block them in loose. Then we'll freehand everything off. So there's a time and a place for a stencil. It's not for a lack of experience or ability. There's a reason for it. You know, the reason I do it is for that reason, is to be able to manipulate the design back and forth, change it, tweak it, recycle it, use it down the road. You got a customer that comes in, doesn't have a budget for 100% custom original that you sketch from nothing, and you work, and he likes what you've done here, likes what you've done there, kind of like Tattoo Flash. You have all these options to give them, so you can do something in a few hours, 2 to 3 hours of airbrushing instead of 8. So that's going to fit in the guy's budget more. This is where I start not putting a lot of paint, because these aren't heavy shadows in here. I mean, they get a little heavy. Like, see this right here? Da-da-da. Again, if you look at, and you look to the left, it looks a lot more shadowed than if you look, to the down cam, because the light's coming at different angles. You're seeing it differently. So I'm going to work right here, which is like the temple behind your head, and I'm going to just cast that shadow in, just like it's doing here. It's just coming light, and I'm just registered. Don't spray a lot here, just a little, and I'm coming down there. Now watch, I'm going to pull this off, this little piece, because I can right now. I barely put any paint there, but it's enough to just register, and it's soft, okay? That's why I'm not doing a lot. Same thing under here. Under here, it's basically, it's how the cheekbone starts to come down to the jawbone. Again, it's not a solid line. It's casting a shadow, and I'm not doing a lot. It's just simple. The mask is almost off the skull entirely. I got, literally 2 more pulls except for the teeth. I'm going to pull the upper forehead. Actually, I'm going to pull that, and that's going to pull the whole face. See, I pulled that. I haven't got there yet. I'll do it in a sec. I'm going to come around. I got to leave that hanging, because if I pull that, it's going to come and take the eyebrow fully off. The eyebrows, when you paint this, please don't do a lot. A little bit here, a little bit in here coming up, and that's it. Maybe a little bit coming off there. It's just to register kind of where the frown, the frown lines are, the angry eyes. Okay, tiny, tiny bits of paint here. Here, I'm just registering where the crack is. Again, a little bit. I'm going to freehand that anyway. So again, I don't want a lot there. My question was too long for the chat. I'll send you a message. Carl, that's cool, but if you try your best, I'll be happy to try to answer it. Okay, see how I barely sprayed there? I'm going to zoom out on the above cam so you can see it's just really tiny. It's just barely showing up. I'm going to come on here like this. That's going to come up. I'm going to pull down. That's pulling all this, all that. All that. And look at that. Pretty much all the skulls are masked except for the teeth. and I talk most of it. And so if you're doing this on solo, you're not trying to talk and do it. There goes, yeah. You could use the paper and cut the pieces out as you go. And I said that. So you could print this out full size on paper, and just cut and pick and weed as you go right from there. So, downloading this project is a $20 download. It comes with the videos of how to do the prep on this and everything else. And, it's a steal considering what this goes into it and what it, would take to teach it live. Okay, so now all the blades are still there. So teeth, let's go back into here. So this is the background. This is the inner palette. And go further out. So you can see this side's casting a shadow more to that. So yes, you're going to put some shadows on the teeth here to make sure they register. You're going to do more so here. And remember, this radius is up. So if you look inside, there's a lot going on in here. Basically, I'm going to do this like I did here, but I'm going to curve them. And you can pop back to the reference of the original, how I did the original, if you want. It's really dark back there. It's going to get darker as I go. Okay. Now we'll start pulling teeth. Dentist time. Again, sequential masking. Work from the furthest back forward. So this tooth and this, these are the first back. I'm gonna do these, and I'm gonna stop when I get to here, and you'll see why. Pop that guy out. Oops. Before I do that, I gotta do the upper ones. Make sure we get those sockets in. And they kind of come up like that. You can come right out of it like this if you want. And between the teeth is darker because it's radius. It's a socket. It's not a, they're not flat. You just kind of miss the whole thing. Now you know where everything is. You can afford to be a little darker back here. Yes, looks super cartoony, super stencily right now, but the key is very little. When I do this personally, I probably do a quarter of the paint that I'm showing you guys here, because I'll do more freehand than anything else. And you just pop up and work each tooth as you go. Definitely, don't forget about super chats. Don't forget about being able to download these. The more people download the super chat and do this, the more videos we're going to continue to do. So I just worked all the way out there. I'm going to work this side. What time is it, Kaylee? 9:05. 9:05. So we're an hour. An hour, most everything's done. When you do this on your own without all the talking and stuff like that, you'll probably be able to... do this in, 20 minutes. This whole guy. Get to the stage. So the cool thing about a project like this is you start out with these loose stencils. This is a hard stencil. What works when I do my pack of skulls, which is my skull stencil series, those you register even less. I'm going to be doing some videos on them. The key is you just get the registration in, So all all your blocking and all your reference lines are in. And then I don't have to worry about anything else but freehanding and detail. That's the benefit to using a stencil. Just like tattooing, you know, if you're going to use a stencil, you're going to stencil something out, you get the rough lines in, and then after that, you just start shading and doing everything to make it look the way you really want it to look. Boom. The skull is completely done. He is off. And now is where the training wheels are off. Okay? This is freehand time. There is no net anymore. I'm not going back in with stencils. I'm not even doing paper cut. You could do paper cut here and do extra details and stuff like that, but I'm not going to do that. This is where I just want to freehand and have fun. So I'm going to start shading like these eye sockets. Remember I said there's a lot of detail inside? I'm going to look at my old reference like that. So this bone here, this connects over. That's a nice kind of crack in the center. Now I'm going to start core shadowing things, radiusing them. A lot of this comes in, I understand skulls pretty well, I've done a lot of them. Now I start doing my dagger strokes. I'm going to run this crack down the bone here. And I'm going to watch. I'm going to core shadow this whole thing, okay? Those who don't understand what core shadowing is, look at your airbrush, okay? Like, look at where the light gleams across it. You got a harsh, bright line across it, then a shadow that's light again towards the bottom. That dark shadow is called the core shadow, okay? So that's really how you radius things out. So watch, and you don't go, I'm not putting right to the bottom. You want to put it just above the bottom because, you know, first one to get this wins. Why don't I put the shadow all the way to the bottom? Why is it lighter here than here? You know, why is it lighter underneath the shadow? It's 2 words. 2-word answer that I'm looking for. Two-word answer. See how that just starts to look radius now? And I'm going to go and shadow that up and loosen that. And I haven't done the blades yet. The blades are going to be last. Refracted light. Light reflecting. Both of you are right. Both the 2-word answer. The other word I was looking for was secondary light, which is reflective light. So basically there's light bouncing off the blades, bouncing off the lower jaw, bouncing off the background, coming back up and hitting there. So the fact that you both hit that word makes you know you understand the basics and the core. The most frustrating thing, you know, teaching or seeing online is when you know they have the ability, they just don't understand it, they haven't been taught it. The basic core shadow, core highlights of drawing and shading. Once you get that fundamental down, whether it's drawing, digital, this or that, airbrushing, tattooing, doesn't matter. All those rules fall into play. So understanding light sourcing is absolutely the most. It's more important than learning how to freehand well. Because if you don't understand, like being able to do good dagger strokes and darks and pellet strokes is really important in airbrushing. But if you don't have the fundamentals of basic drawing and shading light and dark, you're always going to fight your work. Mike's brush, what's going on, buddy? You're always going to fight why your work looks flat, why it doesn't look dimensional. And it's because you didn't spend the time to learn how to do basic shading. And I was guilty of this too for years. I was doing bikes for years, and once I started really learning, proper drawing techniques and anatomy, and it was thanks to my wife, who, went to college and did some art class as well, and I was never formally taught in any way. And she's like, your work would look, your work's awesome. It would look better if you understood this a little more and this more and got more depth because it looked flat. And I got an old gas tank I should pop out sometime, and you'll see how my skulls used to look. They just didn't have the same look. They didn't have the depth. They were kind of blah and flat. So understanding light sourcing is the biggest thing you could learn, next to airbrush control. So see, now I'm going off the skull, and the socket actually kind of comes up further into the nose. I'm going to make these eyebrows a little meaner. Here, I'm going to fade out. And by the time I'm doing this, you don't even notice that stencil line anymore. Another place for this core shadow, right here. The washer, I'm going to put it. I'm going to go up the eye like that, leaving it at the edge. See how that just radiused it? Yes, you guys, awesome. Awesome, awesome. I really got to come up with some little, prize ideas. Alright, there's that. I'm going to continue this crack up like this. Up the eye, so it kind of looks radiused. And start softening everything up. I almost go over every line and soften it. I don't want to do too much because I'm going to go in and do some highlighting. But notice how this is already starting to look softer. And this is already looking softer. I'm going to take this crack that comes off this. I want to pull it here like it's radiused around and it's coming down and it's creating the side cracks in the skull itself. Like if you want to do photorealistic skull with granite and stone texture, Drew Blair School of Realism, he has an exceptional one, and I'm not sure if it's a downloadable project or not yet, but if anyone can correct me, feel free. The buy your beer at the art circus, done, sir. And Blue Honey. I forgot your last name. It's Honey something. You had changed it on Facebook. Sorry. Same thing. If you end up there, you get a beer for knowing that answer, or whatever you prefer. I lost where I was after that. So, see, it's all starting to come together now. Just easy, easy. This nose comes across, and I made so I look back, and so I look back at this, and basically I kind of made a mistake that it looks like the eyebrow is coming over the nose on that side, which it should be behind. So realistically, this nose should actually come the other way and create a shadow to the back of that eyebrow, and it's going to look much, meaner. And when I start highlighting it, you'll notice it more. Just kind of comes back. The nose comes down like this and radiuses up, back down, and right into the middle of these teeth. because you have that kind of middle separation that comes down here in the bone into the septum. I remember teaching next to Rob Churchill and Eddie Davis, and both of them, and Kiwi Terry, they can name all the parts of the bone, the structural parts, and the structural parts. Oh, Rob Churchill is here. So yeah, didn't even see you come in. My ears must have been ringing. They would name like this bone and that bone and the nose and what this was and that one. I don't know them all, so that's kind of my ignorance to it. I've tried to learn them. It doesn't stay in my head, so it is what it is. Like Rob would tell you that what this bone was and what the different plate bones were, and it was really awesome to understand it. Rob's not very good at responding to YouTube. It's alright. Don't have to be good. You're already good at painting and putting together a kick-ass program. And for those just joining, that's called the Airbrush Art Circus, which is going to be on October 1st through the 5th of this year. So definitely pop over there and check out all the different classes. You got my class. You got Rhino for the first time who's going to be on the Airbrush Art Circus. He's going to be doing the pedal car class, which is going to be prep to polish. You'll do a pedal car from not bare metal, but you'll take some dents out, priming, painting, artworking, candying, graphics, whatever he's got planned, and then clearing, polishing, all of it in one shot. We got Jen Mayberry coming on doing tees to tanks. That's going to be an awesome, awesome class. That I believe is Jen's first class. I know it's first class at the circus where she's teaching this method and her process, and that's going to be really, really cool to see. So definitely check that out, and that's all on airbrushArtCircus.com. And that's going to be in Anaheim, California. Alright, so that's done, that's done, that's done. I'm going to get to these teeth on the later side. Okay, before I do pull this, I'm going to take my white. I'm going to go and do a little bit of highlighting in some of these areas, just so I can push back some shadows, and you'll see why. I'd really like to thank all the people coming in. We got like 42 here. I'm not sure how many people are tuning in on the Facebook side. Is Facebook side still going, Kaylee?
Yeah, not many people are really in there.
Okay. So if anyone on the Facebook side, you don't have to see the low res. You can pop over to the YouTube side. Just click the link that's pinned, and you can just pop right over here and look at it. If you have a YouTube account, you can log in. You can comment and play along. If you don't, you can still watch it. You don't need a YouTube account or register to do it. It'll just pop up.
So someone wants to know where you got your paintbrush?
My paint. Oh, the ones in the back. I 3D printed those.
What, you did?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, these are a file I downloaded from what was the name of his studio? I got on the side. Absolute 3D. Absolute 3D had the file, and I did them from there. There's loads of racks like that. A lot of guys also sell them. So I don't. I made them for myself, and they take a long time to print and put together, so I'm not really going to be doing sales on them. Okay, so I got my white, and I want to make sure it's soft, okay? So I've reduced it quite a bit. This is straight Createx illustration white with a drop or two of black, with maybe about 10 to 15% reduction. And I'm painting in the higher pressure range at about 45 psi, just because I paint that high and I like it. You don't need it. Let's see, when it customs, downloaded your reference painting along. Awesome, awesome. You're painting along now? Because that is cool. Really appreciate it. Definitely ask any questions you want of what you're finding. Or what you need. So, I've reduced it quite a bit, and there's something I'm going to talk about really quick. There was some debate the other day on an Airbrush forum. Not debate, but it was a discussion about, do you need higher air pressure or lower air pressure to paint? And someone had said that the paint flows better at lower pressure versus high, and it's simply not true. Because they were talking about whether it was fluid dynamics. Fluid dynamics doesn't really come into play with airbrushes as much because you're not pushing the paint from behind the paint, like a hydraulic line or something like that, where you're pushing the PSI is coming from behind the paint, like the airline is pushing it through it. With airbrushes, you're actually pulling the paint and siphoning it from the cup because the air rushes over the cone and creates a suction, and that pulls it out. So yeah, you can paint at 10 psi, but at 10 psi with a thick, thick paint. This is even thin. So I'm gonna go down. This is 10 psi. I'm gonna switch cameras here. I'm gonna zoom in a bit, just so you can get the basics on it. So watch. If I do 10 psi, it barely wants to come out. Like, see how spitty and spotty it is? It's grainy. And this is somewhat reduced paint. That's 10 psi. This is 15 psi. So it's coming a little better, but the paint's falling. It's spitting. Okay? Because it's not creating enough suction. I'm going to go up to like 20 psi. 20 psi is where you start getting some flow. But not great. It's, okay. If I want to stay at 20 psi, and using microns and stuff, you want to thin the paint more. And then you could paint 20 all day long. See, I get some good rat tail strokes. But if you look at it up close, it's a little grainier. I'm going to go up to like 35 psi. Now, I'm starting to see those nice lines that I can get in and do nice dagger strokes. These little micro strokes. Okay, these little tiny ones. These little tiny ones you cannot do at 15 psi. Look, they're really gross. They're not smooth. So like I said, can you? Yes, but it's more efficient, and you can move better and get a better flow when you're higher pressure, like that, and you're siphoning that paint out. Okay. Airbrush 101. Low PSI sucks. No atomization. Exactly. Look, I like low pressure when I'm running very thin paint. Very thin paint, then it's perfect. Especially in the micron. No, he doesn't paint at 3 psi, David. He's probably around 15 or 20. Super thin, and he's really over-reduced. He's not putting thick paint through it. He's at ink consistency at that point, because microns are really designed for ink-like consistency. So he's probably down around, 15 to 20, maybe at 10 once in a while, but he's also spraying like a water consistency, especially not white. So before I get into this, let's talk about core highlights, talk about core shadows. So now the core highlight's going to be, just look at your airbrush. There's the core highlight right across there. Boom. I'm going to do that right here. I'm going to hit that. I'm going to hit that right down like that. See how that's going to start radiusing that out? Same thing here. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to hit the basics here because I want to shadow after, and then I want to get this pull. I'm going to come down the eyebrows. I'm going to soften this up. I'm going to soften the forehead. I'm going to really brighten that forehead up and get rid of that heavy line there. You just shadow it. Just highlight it. Come across. I'm really concerned just mainly where all this is here, and I want to get that taken care of. I'm going to even put some little highlights here, all these cracks. So when I put the drop shadows, they get covered. Just a little. Let's get those guys in. Now, if you're working with one airbrush, you can kind of mess around. Yeah, Michelle, I prefer 40 to 50 to 40, 45 psi. When I'm doing like realistic fire, So my current PSI is around 40 right now. 40, 45. 35 is acceptable. I took up airbrushing as a t-shirt artist. Super high pressure, 65, 75 PSI, moving really, really fast. So we learned to move really fast. So when I do like realistic fire and stuff on motorcycles and cars, I'm back up to 60 because I want to move. I want to move really quick and have consistent line work. Do I need to be that high? No. You can paint much lower. When I'm on a motorcycle with really thin paint, especially solvent, where I'm reducing more, sometimes I do down the 25 PSI range to 30. That's a comfortable operating zone. Depends on what I'm doing. There isn't an exact right PSI. It's subjective to the airbrush. 25 PSI at the bench coming to my Eclipse is spraying one set of PSI out of the nozzle, or CFM. If I put my micron and it's set, it's different amount of air pressure. It takes, to realistically get 25 PSI out of this, I can run 20 feet. I'm almost running 35 at the bench, so like 20 is actually coming out of here at the tip. Okay. If I'm doing a micron, 15 will almost be 15. It doesn't take as much CFM because it's a much smaller nozzle. Reduction is all part of it, and if different colors are different things. Always reduce first before it goes in the cup. If you add reducer to a gravity feed, remember it takes a while to get in here, so you really got to shake it and give it a second. And I'm going over a lot of this quick here. When I do my classes and workshops at like the circus and the rendezvous and all that stuff, when I used to do it in the getaways, when we did this project at the getaway a long time ago, we can spend a lot of time on this and really go over the nuances of everything. That's something you're just not going to get on videos. You might get it across 20 videos. This one's talking about this video I cover that. One's about reduction like this, one's about reduction. Then that's fine, you're going to get that, but it's really gonna take a while. Just like if you said you were doing tattooing, it takes a long time to get the feel for everything and just kind of how everything flows. Same thing here. How much speed, how much to bear down to the skin, all that comes into play. All right, so I got that. I'm gonna make sure that's all shadowed. Get that in. I can do the rest later. Back to my original. Don't forget to share this stuff, guys. Please do. Tell your friends. Share it. Okay. Let's go back to sequential masking for a second. Okay. Just gotta reset a little bit. I'm gonna go back to these. The hooked blades, the tribal hooked blades. It's like a tribal tattoo design from the 90s, early 2000s. Okay. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to shadow them. Remember, when I'm near the skull is closer, and here when I'm down here, they're further back. So you got to play with this a little bit. I want these shadows to be a little further away, but you still got to get paint on everything. So down here, I'm going to mist over this whole thing just really light, like it's way in the background. Okay. See, it's pushing back. Excuse me. I'm going to roll this and just get it all dark. And that's going to let the paint get... That's going to let the paint get on all these edges so they show up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by painting on the stencil, okay? And then when I get here, I'm going to do a nice fluid motion. I'm going to come off the end. And I'm going to do a nice dagger stroke, a nice soft dagger stroke off this like this. I'm going to come around and I'm going to go like that. I'm going to come away from it to give it... See how that just made it look like it floats? I'm going to do that one motion, and I'm doing this long, soft dagger stroke to the end. Will I be coloring the skull? No, the skull is going to stay the same granite as this whole thing. It's going to be all stone color. It'll be brighter than the background, but it's all going to be in this tone. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to come in one stroke and drop. I don't know if that's really going to show well. Yeah, it looks really dark down here on the camera. But you can see I just come off the edge. It'll make a lot of sense when I start going off. And remember, you got to get paint on the whole thing. So what you could do is just paint on the whole thing first and make sure you get some coverage on this whole background. Then go in and do your drop shadow. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to come up here. This one goes away. This one goes away and goes up further. Okay. Now this one hooks around. I'm going to make sure it really hooks down. It comes down like that. So that soft stroke. When I pull this, it's going to look like it's floating right off the surface. I'm going to go do all of these. I'm going to come around here like that. Because if you look on this, the shadow's coming down. So on this side of the shadow's here. And now it's here and coming up. Because it's basically the shadow's repeating that step. So it's going through everything. And by going through it, like with your eye, the mask is covering that up so it'll stay clear. We've already done that one. We've already been in here. Let's do this. That one comes across. Oops, I missed something. There's a little pull in here. I should have pulled a while ago. But easy. I'm going to pick that out first. Get that to the same tone as that. Now just cast that shadow. Cast that one. These, because it's pointing straight down, they're going to be pretty close, right on it. Cool. Oh, okay. So, yeah. So scan and cuts, similar. So, and the file download on this includes every file type you would need for every program. If for some reason it doesn't open, you can email me. I can convert the file. But the file that comes as download includes, EPS. AI is Adobe Illustrator. EPS is generic. It pretty much opens up in everything. But like Crickets and Cameos things use either DXF or SVG files. And you don't usually open them in those programs. Usually what you do is you import those in. It's a different function for some of these programs. So if open doesn't work, try import. So yeah, all the files are there. And then you can... So for $20, you get the picture files, which you could scan, but you don't need to because you already have all the vectors done. So you'll be all set to go. Okay, we're going to go up here. Same thing. That one's casting a shadow out. Maybe it should have been a little down further, but we'll use a little artistic license how far back it's going to go. This one's coming here like this. This guy's casting here, and then it's closer here. Okay, see that? What I did there? Now I'm coming back around. I'm going to paint all on the stencil. And this one is kind of key. He's going to radius a little bit around. Going to bump around the eyebrow. It's going to come down. And come down here and then go way off here like that. But I got to make sure I paint on the whole thing. I'm just going to miss this whole area. Because when I did this, I didn't have to worry as much. Sorry about that. I didn't have to worry as much about the tips because it was all gray back here, so this stayed tan. So this is the difference Yeah, you can. Yeah, I know the Silhouette has a Adobe Illustrator extension that you can buy, but you don't need it because when I do Adobe Illustrator, if you need the extension to open an AI file, but if the reason I include the DXF file is the Silhouette will natively open a DXF file. I believe it's DXF or SVG without owning or paying extra for the extension. Just an FYI. But the extension is nice because you don't have to worry about converting. You know, most times when you go online to download a file, you usually have the choice of AI or EPS, sometimes PDF, and that's it. So you need a converter, you know, to do it. My downloads, the reason why I do it that way is so you don't have to go through that. Cool. Okay, so now I've gone around, I've registered out all the placement for this. So basically anywhere this blade comes off, it should be registered in because there's enough paint everywhere. So you'll get delineation between everything. Okay? So now I gotta look at, again, sequential. What's under what? You gotta look what's under what. So I know this guy is on top, so he's last. This one's under this one's under this. So I know this one here. So I'm gonna start here, okay? This one here is actually the top one. This is above all the rest, okay? And then this one's behind that one, and this one's behind that one, okay? I know it's confusing, but after you do it, it totally makes sense. So now, I'm gonna look. I'm gonna pull this guy. I'm just gonna gently fold this back and make sure I got enough delineation, and I think I do. I'm gonna pull that guy off. See that? Now he's all there. That was the same color background. So by lightly building everything, everything's in place. Before I do, all I'm gonna do, I'm gonna shadow that placement right there. I'm painting, on, just like the teeth, I'm painting on the stencil. Okay? This one's shadowing to that. That one's shadowing to that. Easy, easy. Make sure I got enough here. Actually, I'm going to go down and probably do some of the little detail on just some little daggers and radiusing core shadow down the bottom of the jaw, base of the jaw here. Just so when I pull this one, it shows up better. See how that looks like it's above that. Oh, I'm not going to do that one yet. Now I'm going to go to this one, because this is the top one. He comes off last. When I do, like, I'll do some videos on some more complex, you know, graphic designs, tribal designs, or, you know, Celtic knots, or all that type of work, filigrees and stuff, to really show, you know, how to make things weave in and out. You know, I'm going to make this more, you know, when I start to shadow this, we're going to make it look more like bony and, you know, kind of gnarly. Just got to make sure everything's in place first. Now this is kind of key. So right now, the bone right here this is weaving through, you know, behind. So I gotta get beneath this dark and really dark against the blade and come down so it looks like it goes under. See that shadow? I just did that. Now it looks like it weaves under better. I dropped that. Every time I drop that, Kaylee has to get off her chair and pick it up. So thank you, kid. And I'm going to shadow here, just light. And I'm going to have to brighten this side up. See, now it's starting to look like it goes under. And after I'm done with this, if you guys have attempted this project or done it, please, if you don't want to put it online, totally get it. Feel free to private message me some pictures if you're stuck, and I can help you along the way. Okay. So now there's no more masking, there's no more net, everything's freehand at this point, and we're just gonna start wrapping this thing up. So let's work from the jaw up and get these teeth going. So the jaw, no need for that anymore, all the mask is off. The jaw right here, I'm going to soften this up here, comes down, it's a little darker, and these kind of teeth, the sockets come down, and some little marks, just pushing things back. Have some skull references nearby, get some ideas of what it's going to look like. And start putting some nice details into it. You can grab yourself like a texture effects and like find a couple little things you like, put them in, and start adding a lot of different textures to it. Right here, this comes down like that, and it starts to give it a feel like it radiuses back. I'm going to shadow here a little bit so it kind of pops the chin out a little further. Maybe this is the chin of like Ash from the Evil Dead. Big chin. Best chin in the biz. I'm going to hit dark right underneath these teeth so it's like a socket going in. Especially the fang. And then I'm going to make sure I core shadow those fangs really nice. We'll start softening things out a little bit and setting it up for some highlighting. And just getting some things worked out. A lot of times I'm just kind of sketching over it. Yeah, quick disconnects, these are great. They make it very easy. These are the Iwata quick connects. I run a few brushes, so definitely make life much easier. So we're going almost to the 2-hour mark, quarter of. I think I can finish this in 15 minutes. What do you guys think? See how just that little working, it starts to really give a lot of dimension to this? Let's do these teeth. Remember, these ones, because of the way it's open, you're seeing the bottoms of the teeth a little bit. So you definitely got to kind of put that in there. Define these sockets a little bit. Make sure they're a little darker. And then we're going to highlight them. They're going to look a lot brighter. And they'll go up. If you're looking for skull inspiration outside of mine, I've have inspiration from Craig Fraser, inspiration from Fido. Fido's probably one of my biggest inspirations for skull work. His work's amazing. Roderick Fuchs. He's got to be, in my book, he's one of the top skull, reaper, dragon painters in the world. And he's got a couple books out now. Reference imagery that'll really help you. See how he does it, and then the key for any of you guys learning this is to eventually develop your own kind of look by kind of mimicking what these are about and learning from them, and then kind of putting your own spin on it is the key. Yeah, if you're using 2 airbrushes, once you go past one, they'll save you a lot of time. Yeah, just grab one of these. The Iwata ones are absolutely outstanding. If you got a Hobby Lobby near you, they sell them there. If you don't, Coast Airbrush is the place I get all my stuff from, all my supplies. They're in Anaheim, California. That's all where we teach the Airbrush Art Circus and the Rendezvous and stuff like that. They have everything, and the staff, you know, most of the staff is actual painters. You know, they're not just salespeople in a call center. They understand the paint. They understand the process. They understand, you know, what you go through as artists. So they're one of the best resources on the planet, especially in the United States. If you're in Canada, Maple Supply is the same. But in the States, Coast is definitely the go-to. Yeah, the OG. Okay, it's cool. It's starting to all shade up, come together. Any questions, guys? Questions from you if you're painting along, or you know, might help the watchers come back later and do it. Things I might have missed that I did and didn't talk about. Questions you might have. Okay, so the way I'm doing these, I do the bones the same way I do, I'm doing the graphic the same way I would do bones. I'm going to core shadow. So core shadow down low here, that all works. I'm going to bring a little extra fold, ripple, just like this jaw, off these points. I'm just going to radius right from a freehand. I'm going to shadow it. It's going to give it a twist. I'm going to put some little pick marks and detail in. And just work it from there. And same thing here. I'm going to come around like this. And I'm going to come right into here like that. So it kind of looks like they're beveled and chamfered in. Now here, see how the shadow's here from the bottom? When I get to here, it's got to be on the opposite side because the radius is coming along. Cool. See, it's starting to give that twist. Oh yeah, the Airbrush Art Circus, yep. Oh, you have to come on. So you'll have to come to the Airbrush Art Circus, do your clown thing, and learn how more painting. It's going to be October. Is the next one. So I'm going to shade up here like this. Put little details. And like I said, I'm going to go in at the end with like little textures. I'm going to find some pieces like this, and I'm going to add a little grit. I'm going to add a little texture. And I'll show you all that in a second. And do some final highlighting, and this thing's done. So here, work it down. But don't follow all the way around, because here is going to be the highlight side, okay? So now you got to come on this side and shadow. You come on this side and shadow. And it starts to radius everything out. And when I go in with the highlights, it'll really finish it all off. So same thing here. And if you can't do that stroke like that, just do short strokes and add a little texture to it along the way. I'm gonna do a couple recorded videos on some basic chiseling techniques in the stone and how to make things look raised up. And I'm gonna do so it's not as confusing as a big project like this. I'm going to do some smaller ones that are going to showcase that. That's coming up. I already got panels prepped for it. And as we're getting to the end, if anyone is interested in these panels, we do take bids for the newcomers. And then we usually top coat these and send them along their way. Within the US, shipping is free. textures and grits, and just start having fun with this piece. Shadowing. You know, another color you could bring in here, if you want to change the tone of everything. This is the Creatix Candy 2.0 Black. This has a little bit more of a purpley cast to it, like a bluish purple. You can go in and tone it out a little bit and see how that's trying to change it. I'm just going to hit a little bit of the areas where I have the strongest shadows and kind of push them back. And just softly change the tone. You know, this is one approach to the process. I like this approach. It's fun. If you're doing a lot of motorcycle work, it's paramount. It's key to start to use stencils and masks and things like that to get some of it, and then freehand your way out of stuff. You know, so by the time you're done, there's less and less stencil look. I'm actually gonna add some opaque white. You can build the illustration colors up 2 or 3 times and get to the white I want, but for the sake of saving time, I'm going to throw some illustration white, make this white a little bolder. It's the illustration opaque, or you can use the wicked opaque. And now I'm going to hit the highlights on the chin. So you watch, you'll see this chin just pop forward. You'll see these teeth. I'm going to hit the edges of the teeth, and the tops and the outer edges, especially those fangs. And most importantly, right inside the sockets. I'm just going to come down light. Hit the top leading edge. And just work my way around the piece. So I'm going to just keep working around. Make definitely that nose. And just start bringing stuff forward. You know, you just start looking at the 3/4 view. It really starts to come to life. It really starts to jump off the page. And highlight that. Really hit that edge. And what's that? No, there's been no bids on it. Go around, get all those little details. So it's essentially white. I put a few drops of black in it initially, so it's kind of gray, so it didn't come up too quick. And now I just put a little bit of opaque white to make it stronger, so it really punches out the highlights. Now remember, if you do this technique, and if you download the file and basically do the process, you'll do it this way first on a light panel. But if you on a dark panel, you can reverse it just like I did these, and go from dot to dot, or download the download both of these, and you'll get all the lessons on everything. And just go in and just work it. And then, I'm going to definitely highlight these cracks. And you can take a brush here. You don't have to do it all with the airbrush. You can take a brush and do some brush work. You can do a bunch of detailing stuff. Just go in and work the piece until you're done. Oh, Gary, I didn't see the bid on the Facebook side that Gary put in. If Gary's over here, let me know what the bid was on the Facebook side, because I didn't catch it or hear it.
150.
150. Yeah, screw it. You'll go for 150. I'm going to hold out for a little more for this piece, but just go around and keep highlighting things out. Somebody was slacking and not seeing the bids over there if that came through. Sorry about that, Gary. Someone wasn't paying attention. You know, so now you can use shields, and if you want to pick out some highlights and sharpen things like this, get that nice and crisp, go in here.
We've got 2 more minutes.
Get 2 more minutes, yep. Okay, as we start closing out, make any final bids. And I think this one's going to look best with a matte clear. Yeah, I know the original, I think, yeah, this original one, Wayne LePage has this original one. The original one from the magazine. So in closing, I'm just going to keep working our way out of here. It's a fun project to tackle. Go on to McKayFineArt.com, download this, learn from it, let me know what you got for questions. And the lessons you learn in this project during this process come in so handy in more complex and more, you know, sinister designs and things like that. So I try to make my lessons something you can use as a tool and build on that tool, you know, and then add it to another tool and add it to something else and add it to something else and make a really, you know, successful project that you're going to continue to build on, learn from, make money from. And if you want to do stuff live in person, definitely come to the Airbrush Art Circus or the Airbrush Rendezvous with the Airbrush Art Circus comes up in October. And it, you know, I'm not sure, I haven't talked to Iwata yet, but we might be doing the last SEMA we did the Airbrush demonstrations live. So I don't know if that's happening this year. Hope they are. So I probably might be doing those again. So I will keep you all posted on that if that happens. No, I'm not adding color to the skull at all. It's staying this stone-looking skull. Stone to the background, stone cracks. And skulls are white-ish color anyway. So I want this all to be kind of a monochromatic piece in stone. And I'm going to add some extra stone cracks into here, let it all tie together. And that is going to wrap it up and finish this piece off. Oh, the other one I did a lot. The one I did at the circus, we took Gerald Mendez's blood splatter effects before we did this, and we did blood splatter all around the background. It was really cool, and it really popped the skull with a bunch of blood splatter. So with that, kids, I'm going to close this off. I'm going to go in after this, do a couple little picks and things, and just work in it. So I'd like to thank everyone for staying on the feed so long and checking it out to the end. I hope you all learned from it. I'm going to thank everyone now for downloading this, ahead of time and future downloads and attempting this project. Feel free to reach out to me privately on my Facebook page or comment in here if you have any questions, any steps, get stuck on anything. Stay tuned for more videos, more things. Message me, let me know content you want to see. And with that, I'm going to close this off right now. End it. Say goodbyes. Thank you, Mr. Voss. So in closing, just want to say thank you for checking out Airbrush Down Dirty Tricks. Today, this was July 15th, 2021. So stay tuned for more stuff. More stuff's coming. More downloads are coming. I got some really cool stuff planned over the next few weeks. So definitely set up those notifications, subscribe, tell all your friends, tell all your buddies. Share this on Facebook, Instagram, all that crazy stuff. And make this page bigger. The bigger and better it gets, the bigger and better the content's going to get that I can provide to you all. So have an awesome night. See y'all later. Keep the comments coming. See ya. And goodbye, Facebook.